Item number 7, members of the public wishing to address the board. School board members encourage public participation. Your input is greatly appreciated. If you wish to address the school board, please follow these steps. Complete a citizen request to speak card, which is located at the back of the auditorium. Submit the card to the school board secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Card submitted after public comment has ended will not be considered at this session. The superintendent, pardon me, will call your name when it is your turn to address the school board. Please speak into the microphone. You will have up to 3 minutes to share your comments.
We have no speakers.
We have no speakers, okay. That takes care of that. Moving on, item 8, interlocal agreement approval. 8.1, approval of agreements with Tacoma Housing Authority. Superintendent Santorum, if you would, please.
The superintendent recommends that the board execute the attached interlocal cooperation agreement, contract for services, and interlocal cooperation agreement, partnership agreement with the Tacoma Housing Authority. And so it's my pleasure. I asked Michael and Janet and I don't know if he brought any other crew to come to come to talk about this agreement. We continue to get all kinds of accolades from the creativity and the innovation that's contained in this partnership. And it's been a pleasure to work with Michael and the Tacoma.
Superintendent Santorum, could we have a motion to adopt
I'll
first?
move it. I'll
Oh,
move
I'm sorry.
adoption.
I was in the middle of my speech.
We're all excited.
You,
Yeah. Sorry.
you need to recuse yourself. Thank you.
Well, you don't have to do it yet, right? She doesn't have to. She's not until their time to vote. Shannon, when does Ms. Cobb need to recuse?
I think it would be best that she recuse herself at this point in time.
I do too. Okay, thank you,
Uh,
Director Cobb.
Director Cobb is recusing herself for there to be any appearance of conflict of interest. She is an employee of the Tacoma Housing Authority. There is no technical conflict of interest or violation of this municipal ethics officer rules, as she is not going to receive any personal financial benefit from this contract, but just so that there is no appearance of conflict of interest, she is not participating in this discussion, voting, or remaining in the room.
Director Cobb, I think we'll ask you to leave the room. Thank you. Mr. Vopel will go with you. All right, it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the motion. Now,
Okay.
thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, yesterday I went to the board meeting of the Tacoma Housing Authority, and so it was very fitting that I asked Michael to come forward today to talk to us a little bit about this agreement. Thank you, Mr. Mira.
I noticed that you used the Major League Baseball rule in asking a board member to leave the room, as well as recuse themselves, that when you're kicked out of the game, you also have to leave the dugout.
That's right.
My name is Michael Mira. I'm the executive director of the Tacoma Housing Authority, and it is very pleasant to come to you and address the board, mainly to say thank you for a partnership between the school district and the Tacoma Housing Authority that I think has distinguished itself in the nation for its innovation and creativity and results. And the school board's adoption of these interlocal cooperation agreements is a big step forward in that partnership, because it provides the first element of a successful partnership, and that is an authoritative commitment by the two organizations at the highest levels of each organization to this partnership. And we're grateful for that. We're grateful as well for Superintendent Santorno and her staff. It's been a partnership throughout both organizations, and that's what it will take. And we have that, and we think that to be rare in our experience talking to other housing authorities in other parts of the country. And here I'd like to explain why a public housing authority is interested in education. I think there are 3 reasons for it. And the first reason is how we understand our mission. The guts of our work is to provide high quality and affordable housing to people who need it with a focus on the neediest. But we are looking for ways to spend a housing dollar, not just to house someone, but to get at least two other things done. Help the families prosper, certainly for the parents, but emphatically for the children, because we do not wish them to need our housing when they grow up. And we count school success as a necessary part of that transformation. The second reason we are interested in education is because we are real estate developers. We invest lots of money in neighborhoods and in communities in ways that will not pay off, either financially or socially, unless the schools that serve them succeed. And third, we are interested in education because we think the school district has a claim on our help. We have a very good school district, as you know, with superb leadership. But still, children who grow up in deep poverty bring challenges to your schoolhouse door that the best teacher in the fanciest classroom cannot overcome on their own. Near the top of that list might be housing instability and the family challenges that go with it, and that's where we come in. And we think you have a claim on our help. And we started this partnership 7 years ago, not really knowing where it would take us. There were not too many templates to use, but we started with a surmise that the Housing Authority can have an influence over school outcomes because of three facts that are probably true in a lot of places, but they're surely true in Tacoma. The first fact is, except for the school district and DSHS, nobody serves more poor children in Tacoma than the Tacoma Housing Authority. We house or pay to house 1 out of every 7 enrolled public school student. We house or pay to house 1 out of every 4.5 low-income enrolled public school student. The second fact is, in serving them and their families, we're deep into their lives. We're their landlord. We provide this very valuable housing assistance. We provide supportive services. We fuss with them about their compliance with exquisitely detailed federal rules. And all that gives us influence over their behavior and choices. And the third fact is, we own large properties that are good staging grounds for the interventions of others, the educational interventions of others, which we make available to the school district. And that has been the premise of this partnership that is growing in elaboration. And there are 7 elements to it right now, but we just count them as the first 7. The first started 5 years ago with the McCarver Elementary School Housing Assistance Program, which with the school district we are now planning to expand to further schools. The second is the Children's Savings Account Program for the children of Salishan who go to Lister, Blix, or Roosevelt, Jason Lee, First Creek Middle School, and Lincoln High School. The third element is probably our book program, where the school district gives us books that we hand out, and we hand out 8,000 of them a year. It's our version of Reach Out and Read program. We host the district's only Head Start classroom outside a school building at our Bay Terrace community. We participate in your early warning attendance system. And we participate in the management of an Innovative Gates Foundation grant. And all this is an effort by both organizations to find out where we fit in the ever-presenting challenge of educating children. And I want to tell you that we're very happy about this partnership. We're grateful for it. It's a good fit for our mission. When it works, it's a very good use of a housing dollar. And on behalf of the Tacoma Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, we look forward to a long and ever-maturing partnership. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments to the board? Do we have to vote on these individually or as one?
No, the agenda item is written to approve both of them.
I thought so. Well, just some comments. I think this is one of our flagship partnerships that has benefited not only children in our community, but adults also, made people better parents by what is required. People ask me, well, how are you going to insure people? And I said, well, we don't do that. That's part of what THA works with us, and we do require parents to get parenting, to go to PTA, to become involved with their children in the school. And I think that's a critical part that sometimes we don't emphasize, because we all know that our parents are our children's best teachers. And if we teach them how to be better parents and to give them the tools that they need, which we do in this program, and I have said in some of the meetings and heard some of the parents talk about what a great learning curve it has been for them, then we not only by providing housing stability, we also up the odds that these children will continue to succeed. And to me, that's an integral part that makes this thing really work, in addition to providing the housing, helping people who have not had that opportunity to know what parenting skills they can learn, and also helping them achieve employment, helping them re-enter school. So I just want to say thank you, Michael, for putting that part in and making that part work and making that a big part of what we do. You know, it's always fun to go brag about this program nationally because no one else does it. And I think that's another feather in our cap and in THA's, and in the fact that in Tacoma, and being a lifelong resident, in fact, a fifth generation Tacoman, that one of the things Tacoma does well is come together and work to solve problems, particularly for our kids. And I think this agreement that we're now continuing on for a number of years is really indicative of that nobody said nay, nobody said no, everybody said let's go make it work. And thank you for your leadership and your board's leadership. Okay. Janet, did you want to say something?
Thank you. I just wanted to add to
Tell
your
us who
point.
you are.
I'm sorry. Oh, I'm Janet Gates Cortez, and I'm part of my role is as district liaison to the Tacoma Housing Authority Partnership. Just to add to the point that you were making, President Vial, last night we had a McCarver THA family meeting, and in the partnership with KBTC, who provided childcare and learning activities to support that evening's event. We also had a group of parents that showed 21 parents, many more students, that were there, and they talked about what would they like to see in terms of their goals and the family nights. Their goals were goal setting. What do you do when you have barriers to your goals? We want to know about financial literacy. Their words were, we want to know about how to budget so that when we know 5 years from now, when we don't have the support, through a voucher system with THA, that we'll be able to meet our goals. We want to have our universities and our colleges and our community colleges come and speak to us about what we need to do to enter college and how we can share that message with our children. We want to know about resources within the community. And the one thing that was also amazing was that they said, we want to know how we can advocate for more resources within our community and for our school district. So when you talk about the hardships that families have, here we are having adults as parents, teachers to their children. This is a program that really supports more than one generation, and that's what it's going to take to break the poverty cycle, and it's also what it's going to take to have our students succeed in school because their parents are modeling that. So with a true partnership, we have tenacity, and we know that things aren't always going to work the first time we try it, but if we're there to show true grit and problem solving, and we keep setting that goal and vision in sight, we're going to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Board comments? Any? All right. Hearing none. All those in, let's do a roll call vote on this because this is a significant vote. Whoops.
Director Hines.
Aye.
Director Winskill.
Aye.
Director Vial.
Aye, by a vote of 3-0, the resolution passes. Thank you, and thank you again. We look forward to a long and fruitful partnership and an expansion, and thank you, both of you, for your leadership. All right, Superintendent's report. Superintendent Santorno, 9-1, Bose-Taft Partnership.
I have been working to get the Taft partnership in front of the board for quite a while. We are really excited. I know that some of you have attended some of their events, and we are excited about having them come up and talk about their year. We've got Trish DeZico, which I'm assuming had an incredible trip from Seattle all the way down here. Thank you, Trish. That's great. Good for you. And Mr. Wilkins, Aaron Wilkins, to talk to us about that first year. So thank you very much.
Have you got
Thanks for
stuff
coming.
for us? Or-
Thanks, Josh.
Ready? Okay. I'm Trish Malines DeZico, co-founder and executive director of Technology Access Foundation. Happy to be here under different circumstances than I was before. I see that.
We're not going to mention that.
I'm really excited to be here to talk about the completion of the first year of the school, STEM by Taft school transformation of Bose Elementary. I'm just going to give a quick overview from Taft's standpoint and then let Aaron take it away from what happened on the ground, because that's the most important thing. First of all, thank you very much for the partnership. Bose was the third school in our pilot, in our transformation pilot. We applied everything that we learned from the first two experiences into this work, where really, if you match that up with the leadership of Tacoma School District and the leadership of Aaron at Bose, that together is really what made the difference, and is what made Bose shine through this first year. We started with cautious and sometimes skeptical optimism. I think that the staff wanted to trust the partnership, but they weren't quite sure. And Aaron did a good job leading the way there. But after the first training, everything changed, because they realized that everything that we said, even when you came, Superintendent Santorno, they still were skeptical, right?
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, but after the first training last summer, everything changed. And they had an amazing school year. They did some great things through this model, had 2 wonderful exhibitions of learning for the public and for their families. And in front of you, we have our summary of the end of year report. And as you can see, the student engagement improved, the collaborative work, not just only on the staff side, but also on the student side improved. We saw confidence in learning. The extracurricular programming seemed to be enhanced. And we started moving towards student-led learning experiences. And then the increased use of technology. I saw teachers struggling with technology, but willing to struggle through it and willing to try new things, which was great. And they brought some new things, and they learned some new things from the kids, because the kids are pretty much ahead of everybody, right? But that willingness to see what a kid has found and is using as a tool, and to say, hey, why don't we try to use that as a classroom, which is very important. Some areas of growth, I think, really expanding that shared use of tools and resources. They seem to be in silos a little bit, even though they were collaborating on grade band, but you might have a 5th grade team found something and didn't quite pass it on to the 3rd grade team, et cetera, and they're struggling with the same thing. So we're going to work on that this coming year, really focusing a lot on the depth of knowledge and how much we actually put in the projects for their project-based learning, and we're going to increase the number of projects. They did 2 the first year. We're going to do 3 this coming year, and we expect to see some growth there. And then I would say the other piece is really getting to the learning community, the full learning community at Bose, the parents. One of the things that we struggled with at Taft Academy the first few years, is that parents really didn't understand the model because it wasn't the school that they went to. So we want to get ahead of this early and really spend some time this year working with BOES to help translate that knowledge for the parents so they can understand why their kids are coming home so excited about learning, so they can help at home, and so they can ask all the right questions to help us together to make this a really good process. So excited about year 2. I think you guys were super excited about year 2. They came into the Teacher Institute like gangbusters, really ready to go, and hopefully they were a good example for Sahali Middle School teachers because we are starting to transform that school. They're in Federal Way. We're going to transform that school starting in 2 weeks, so could be interesting. Aaron?
Thank you, Trish.
Aaron Wilkins, principal at BOES Elementary. First, I'm passionate about everything that's going on at BOES, but I want to thank the board specifically on the opportunity. And what I mean by that is there's been so much investment of capital and resources and people that let us start this journey. The last, August, we just finished our training in July, end of July, and I've never seen staff members go into professional development excited. That just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. And to see them come back out because they knew that what they were going to do was going to translate directly to kids' lives. So our first year was a great celebration starting point for us. It's not the kind of year that you have that you say, we're done, we've reached the pinnacle of our success. We're just at the very beginning of those foundational pieces. But the difference now at BOES is when we had our very first exhibition for the very first time in my experience at BOES and at any other school in Tacoma, we had standing room only for the invitation. Director Cobb was there, matter of fact, and she got to see that experience. What was so unique about that, as you look up 65th Street, we had cars parked on both sides of the roads all the way back up towards McKinley, all the way back down towards Portland Avenue. That's never happened. And I think the biggest difference that's happening is the kids' voices are coming out now in ways that they've never come out before. The families are there to see what their kids are learning, and the kids are leading that learning. So teachers aren't simply saying we have to cover Common Core state standards, and this is what we do this year. They're going, what problem of practice do kids want to focus on, and how are we going to dig deep into that, and then how are we going to lace in all those different standards within that lesson. So our next steps are to continue to build relationships. We had over 40 partnerships this year alone with community agencies that came in, worked in the classrooms even before the exhibitions, and it's a regular occurrence. The hardest part now as a principal is that you can't have your hand on every single activity that's going on. There's so much, but you folks have blessed us with an assistant principal, so that's good. So I just want to say that BOES is starting to establish a foundation for stronger learning that is student voice based. We want to know what it is kids are excited about and how they can dig deeper. We know that we will fully arrive when we don't deal with attendance issues anymore, when those issues like that are gone and kids are fighting to be at school because they know if they miss, they're going to miss out on something great. And we're starting to see the fruits of that come into place. So my last thing I like to say, just to honor time, is that our next steps are not just to continue to build and maintain relationships, but it's to start to transfer this whole entire project-based learning methodology to everyday practice. Not simply the big exhibition that comes up, but everything that goes on day in, day out. And the nice thing about it, all the initiatives that are going on in our school district right now with literacy instruction, mathematics instruction, they fit right into project-based learning. So it's not two different systems at work, it's one seamless system. So we thank you folks for the opportunity to come before you. And the most important thing I have to say right now is come to BOES. Come there, invest your time in there. We want to see you there. And I don't just mean on big nights. I mean throughout the week. We believe that if you put your hands there at that school, you're not going to want to leave. Old building, but a beautiful spirit within that. And we'd love to see you come there as often as you can. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Questions or comments to the board? I'll just say, you know, this is just what, quite frankly, I expected from both of you, knowing both of you and what you achieve in your commitment, Aaron, when you went to BOES 4 years ago, that this is what, you know, we hope to see as a school board when we take, you know, we call it chances, but they're well-reasoned and look at the risk of starting a program like this, and particularly at a school like BOES. And and it's really exciting, and since I will have Lincoln High School this year, I will be there again to support you and to see you. Otherwise, I know you know my phone number.
Definitely so.
So anyway, thank you for coming, Trish. Thanks for coming down from Seattle. But again, this is part of, as Carla says, our brand, innovation for raising academic achievement. And thank you, it's impressive.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Carla?
Trish, I just want to thank you so much for
Yes.
the work you personally have put into schools across the I-5 corridor. And I remember my first tour of the TAF Academy and how exciting it was and what you were doing there. And you could have stopped there and just done that, but you haven't. You've gone into public schools and taken care of them. And I just want you to know that everybody doesn't do that, and we appreciate so much your efforts and coming all the way down to Tacoma to support us.
Dr. Garcia?
I'd just like to echo that. And what a unique private-public collaboration. And I've had the unique pleasure to work with the TAF Foundation for a while. And just the commitment to not replace something that's already working, but to enhance things for kids and really a true community investment. So I just want to tell you how proud I am of the work that's happening there and how thankful I am, and knowing that this is truly a model that not only others can seek in our state, but in our nation, about how to work collaboratively together to provide kids a world-class education. So thank you.
Thank you. I just want to share a very quick story. New School Venture Fund out of California came to visit. They came to TAF Academy first, and then came to Bose to see what we were striving toward. And I have to say, Aaron, the best compliment Aaron paid to us and our staff is that you can't tell the difference between the TAF staff and the Bose staff when you're walking through the campus, because we're all such a good team, right? And that's how we want to be everywhere. And so even when our 5 years of, this transformation is done, we're still going to be here. We're still going to have people on the campus, because the Bose kids are our kids, and the staff belong to our team, and we belong to the Bose team. So it came out that way, and it was really awesome to see somebody from the outside hear that and how they reacted to it. So thank you so much for the partnership.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
again.
so much.
Thank you, and we'll look forward to coming out after school starts. I know you will. I know. Item number 10, consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments by members of the board on the consent agenda?
Madam President, may I make a quick comment?
Yes.
There's obviously a lot on the personnel
Yes.
recommendations, but there's one name that I would just, I'd feel disappointed if I didn't recognize. Mr. Pete Shoup has announced his retirement after I don't know how many years, and Pete's not here tonight, and thankfully he's probably at the right place with his family. But I remember even the first week that I was here in Tacoma, he took me on a tour and talk about, like many of the people that are on the agenda, but as one example, as someone that is so passionate about the city of Tacoma, the Tacoma Public Schools. And so I just wanted to, wherever Pete is, acknowledge him. He's with us for a few more months, so you'll get an opportunity to thank him individually as well. But he has officially put in for his retirement, and you are about to take some action, and so I just wanted to recognize him for that.
Thank you, because I didn't get a chance to look all the way through that. I'll just echo your comments. First time I met Pete, after I came on the board, he said, we're going to go out this year and we're going to make our schools look good, and we're going to work on curb appeal. And that was when he was first up into his job, and he did. I went to several schools opening day. The grass had been mowed, and the flower beds had been fixed, and the floors were polished. And he said, we may not have new buildings yet. And that was when we were getting ready. But he said, we're going to put our best foot forward. And I know on this lead issue that we went through the water, Pete was there, I know, and saw him over at one of the schools on a Saturday, and they were working. And so I think, we have been very blessed to have people like Pete who see it as more than a job. It's a passion, and I know that every time he's been asked, he's responded and been there, and, hopefully he'll have time to call us up and play golf once in a while. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. Item 11, policy matters. Item 11.1. This is first reading of policy number 3115, homeless students, enrollments, rights, and services. Would you like to address this? Great.
Identified in the accompanying board action report. This is a policy that is being set forth to address changes that have happened to regulations associated with the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. The most noticeable change in the red line you'll see is associated with efforts to notify and provide specific information to families. So this is a adjustment of a policy in order to maintain compliance with current law and regulation.
Okay, so this is the first reading, no recommendation. We will adopt this at our next board meeting. 11.2, first reading of policy number 3121, compulsory attendance. Ms. McMenamy.
This is also another policy that has been being changed to address changes in state law. There were many changes to truancy and discipline in particular, coming from the legislature this year. These changes associated to this policy and the subsequent policy also related to attendance relate to making our policy fully compliant with the new laws and are tied to the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction's memorandum, which is also attached to your agenda item to explain where they are. With respect to policy 3121, there is a new requirement about very specific information that needs to be provided to families, and there's a model letter that our truancy folks will now start using in order to ensure compliance with the changed truancy law.
Okay, moving on. Item 11.3, first reading of policy 3122, excused and unexcused absences. Ms. McMenamy.
Also, an attendance policy that is being changed to align with new law and the Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction's memorandum about that. You'll see that the primary proposed changes relate to specific time requirements that need to be complied with, expanded conference and intervention requirements, and the district's use of attendance support teams to fulfill upcoming statutory requirements associated with community truancy boards.
Okay. Item 11.
Director Riel,
Yes.
can I raise a question about this policy or make a comment?
Sure. Go ahead.
I was reading through this and I have some concerns with section D here. It says it's related to whether or not students have the opportunity to make up work and the consequences of their being absent for reasons that are unexcused. I just find that the language here is punitive, and we've kind of determined that all absences, be they excused or unexcused, have a negative impact on student achievement. So I don't like the idea that when a student's absence is unexcused, they cannot have the opportunity to make up work. So I just raise this as something to discuss if others are interested in it, or I just want to go on record saying that I don't like Section D, and I just think it's punitive.
Section D is the policy as is. Of course, the board is free to make amendments to these policies that are more broad than simply the changes that we have proposed with respect to compliance with state law. Dr. Kabista was the primary drafter of the substantive changes to these, and she has identified that she recognizes that these are areas where there might be philosophical or broader changes that the board would like to make. Particularly associated with excused absences, unexcused absences, definitions of that sort of thing. And so definitely whether the board as a whole wishes to change that portion of the policy before adoption of the proposed changes at the next meeting, or if the board would like to revisit the topic in the future as part of a larger philosophical discussion, she's prepared for that.
Is it a part of the policy or the regulation?
It's a part of the policy, the current policy as written.
What does the state say about that, or is that just our policy?
Our policy is the prior policy was consistent with the WASDA model policy that existed before the changes in law. These changes that are being proposed consistent with the OSPI memorandum and the law itself. There have not yet been new WASDA model policies and regulations adopted for this or for discipline. So this is the language that many, many school districts have used in the past, but certainly, as Director Cobb noted, philosophically, things associated with truancy have changed a lot. And so if the board wants to revisit it, you are absolutely free to do so in any way you would like.
I would like to revisit it. I think letting kids make up work is kind of ridiculous. Dr. Winsko.
Yeah, I agree with Andrea, because so often, especially with elementary children, their truancy is related to, it's the parent's issue, not really the child's issue. I think in changing this, we have only a couple weeks to change it. It'd be interesting to talk to like a group of teachers and some principals about how to make it work. I don't know if we can do it on time. I mean, I'd like to do it on time, but I would like to do a good job. So that's just where I stand.
Well,
And just as a follow-up, I don't like the overall spirit of the section, but in particular, I have issue with how it starts. It says, as a means of instilling values of responsibility and personal accountability. And to Director Winskill's point about the younger kids, it often is not about the child.
Most of the time, it's not them.
Yeah.
My experience in elementary was, Director Hines?
Are we time-bound on this policy, or do we have
The
time to-
changes that have been recommended in order to comply with the changed truancy law do need to be made in advance of the start of the school year so that we have current policies and regulations related to truancy, because of course our truancy obligations start on day one of the school year. So that is the only limitation with respect, and that's why there's a proposal to have these adopted next week at your special meeting, so that they're adopted in time for the school year to start,
Right.
but also so that there would be time for greater public commentary as well as for greater board reflection. So certainly, if removing that section is something that the board is interested in doing in advance of adoption, that can be done. If you would like to mark this as something you would like to come back to in the near future, I am pretty certain Director Kabista expected that to be happening.
Yeah, I would suggest that we go ahead and adopt it, but bring it right back for amendment. And that way we're in compliance, because we're not gonna have a board meeting before school starts. That way we're in compliance and we can come back and amend it.
Are we
And-
adopting that tonight? Or is
No,
that-
it's first reading. It's just
yeah.
first reading. That Shannon and Dr. Garcia and Dr. Kaviska get together and draft up some language that is less punitive and is more positive about assisting our kids, and keep it, you know how to craft that language so that we're still doing what the state wants us to do, but yet at the same time doing our own thing.
Would you like us to have, just for clarity, is that for next week or for?
No,
at
for
some
the
point down
following
future?
board meeting, so we can bring it back and get it fixed right away, so that when we start school, after school starts, we have a policy that's not punitive. Yes. Dr. Garcia?
Just to build on that, and another alternative would just be to remove the section altogether.
Well, that's
And-
fine too, I
and
don't
then-
care.
And meet the spirit of what I hear the board saying. And
Yeah.
then if we, as a staff, can spend more time and revise it that way, but then we're starting from day one, it will meet your intent of non-punitive.
Let's just take it out and then come back and have Jen and staff figure out something that says that we don't penalize kids for unexcused absences. And does that meet what you want to do? Okay, great.
I will
Me too, and
prepare
the
that
rest of us.
change in advance of the adoption.
Okay, super. All right, I got lost here. Okay. Item 11.4, first reading of policy 3241, student conduct discipline.
Like with the others, this is also a change necessitated by change in state law. I will say that the discipline portion of state law is probably the most significant change, and the most significant change we've seen to student discipline in years. And so there are some very specific new requirements, most of which are going to be encompassed in the regulation, not the policy itself. But there are specific new requirements associated with the length of suspensions and expulsions. And that that with the exception of automatic calendar year expulsions for firearms, that expulsions are not to carry on beyond an academic term. The legislature left it up to each school district to define what an academic term is, so that's the real key component of this policy for the board to consider, is identifying what an academic term is for the meaning of those new, application of those new laws and regulations. The proposal from staff is that the academic term be tied to its existing meaning for elementary school students, quarter, for secondary students, semester, for students at schools who use trimester. First, because it simply makes sense, and second, because to borrow from Dr. Kabista, I don't think any of us want to see elementary school students out of school for 6 months. So that being said, that was the recommendation for the term, academic term that's being proposed for you to consider.
Okay. questions, comments? Okay.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I
That's
neglected to mention another key component of the change in state law is that there's now a requirement that school districts provide the opportunity to access educational services to students who've been suspended or expelled. And so that is something the district piloted doing last year when it was not required, but it's now going to be a requirement moving forward. And so there's no cost associated with these policy changes, though obviously there will be a cost in providing those educational services to students who've been suspended or expelled. It's a challenge to identify what those will be right now, given that how many students are suspended or expelled under the new requirements, where there's fewer things that you can suspend or expel a student for. It might change our discipline data pretty significantly, given that what used to be discretionary is now non-discretionary.
Okay. 11.5, first reading of policy 3413, student immunization and life-threatening health conditions. Ms. McManamy.
This is also alignment of policy with law. There were changes associated with the requirements for providing information related to immunization status and for what qualifies as a personal exemption from immunization. And also, probably most importantly, is having a clearly articulated process for families and students if a student is excluded from school for either not being immunized or for having a life-threatening health condition where the necessary requirements of doctor's orders haven't been fulfilled. So the prior policy referenced applying discipline statutes. Obviously now there's been a tremendous change in the discipline regulations, and we wanted to provide a very clear process for students and families, and one that was on the shortest possible timelines as opposed to the more lengthy timelines associated with the suspension.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, item 12, quarterly financial update. There is no quarterly financial update. Presentations, yes, sorry.
I just wanted to make sure that we made it clear to the public, because this is a little bit different. So we're reading we're having the first reading tonight. In our, we've definitely taken this policy revision up to the last minute to get it done and to get it finished. So then we are suggesting that in order to meet the deadline of having these adopted before school starts, of doing it at our retreat day on the 1st. We've been talking about having the retreat, at a different place.
Probably
but
better have it here.
It seems to me that if we have this, if we want public that may want to speak, we need to have a public hearing so that if our public, as they look at these policies, decide they want to have, they want to talk about it, I think we should probably have it here.
I agree.
So that they can do it, okay?
And I believe Ms. Beatty can simply build in the opportunity for public comment to the agenda
Right.
for that, like it were a regular business meeting. So I will work with Ms. Beatty. There are some contracts that the board is also likely going to need to approve in order to ensure that students' services can be provided in the start of the school year. And so I will work with Ms. Beatty to make sure those are taken care of in an expeditious manner.
I want to talk further about the contracts before we add them on, but we can certainly look at that. And I apologize to Tanya, who's put the retreat at several different places and ended up back where we are. So thank you, Tanya, for being so flexible. Thank you.
Item 12, quarterly financial update. There is no quarterly financial update. Presentations on the financial health of the district will be made during regular board meetings on a quarterly basis. Monthly financial statements can be found on the district website at www.tacomaschools.org/financial reports. Item number 13, curriculum and instruction. 13.1, approval of early childhood education and assistance program ECAP FY16-17 continuation grant. Dr. Garcia.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning, recommends the Board of Directors approve the Early Childhood Education and Assistant Program Continuation Grant in the amount of $1,113,600. Funding source, early learning.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 13.1. Any questions or comments to the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion carries 4-0. Item 13.2, approval of Pierce County Juvenile Court interagency agreement for the 2016-17, 2017-18, and 2018-19 school years for educational services at Reman Hall. Dr. Garcia.
Ms. Pace, would you? Or I could jump right in.
Oh, I'm
Sure,
sorry.
that's
I
okay.
thought it was Josh again. You
That's
go
all
ahead.
right.
Good. I just
It-
want to see if he was asleep.
Yeah,
Okay.
or me, one of the two.
Yeah.
You caught us
Um,
both.
I did.
The Assistant Superintendent for K-12 Support, on behalf of the Executive Director of Secondary Education, recommends that the Board of Directors approve the Pierce County Juvenile Court Interagency Agreement for the 2016-17, 2017-18, and 2018-19 school years. Funding source, the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction, Basic Education.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve item 13.2. Are there any questions or comments of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Moving on, item 14, business matters. 14.1, approval of resolution 2011 adopting the 2016-17 budget. Ms. Medina.
Yes, we have done this before, so it is not deja vu.
It feels like it.
It does feel like it. Unfortunately, we slipped a digit when we had the last one on the agenda, and we only adopted $7 million worth of debt service fund expenditures instead of $47 million worth of debt service fund
So
expenditures.
basically, what are we're adopting an amended?
We're adopting the amended version of what was
Budget.
previously submitted, and nothing else has changed except that we've added the correct number for debt
Oh,
service.
and what is that number?
47 million.
Oh, we left the
Something
4
like that.
off. That's minor detail. Okay, sorry.
The 4 was really important in this case.
Yeah, okay. Are there any?
The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors adopt Resolution Number 2011, providing for the adoption of the 2016-17 budget.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. Motion carries 4-0. Item 14.2, adoption of Resolution 2012 outstanding warrants 2016. Ms.
The Chief
Medina.
Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors adopt Resolution Number 2012, canceling warrants that have remained outstanding for over 1 year.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments of the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries, adopted 4-0. Item 14.4, item 14.3, adoption of resolution 2013, key bank signatures. Ms. Medina.
Thank you. The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors adopt Resolution Number 2013 and approve the updated list of the employees who can authorize transactions on these accounts and authorize the superintendent and/or designee to approve the plan.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments of by the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Item 14.4, approval of grant transfer for Head Start FY16 supplemental application grant number 10 CHO194.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Assistant Superintendent for Teaching and Learning, recommends that the Board of Directors approve the transfer of $60,000 of existing Head Start funding to purchase new playground equipment for Roosevelt Elementary and Point Defiance Elementary School. Funding source, Head Start funds.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Item 14.5, approval of Maxim Healthcare Nursing Services Contract.
The Deputy Superintendent, on behalf of the Assistant Superintendent of Support Services, recommends that the Board of Directors approves the annual contract for nursing services with Maxim Healthcare Services for the 2016-17 school year.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments by the staff, by the board?
I have a question.
Yes, Director Skill.
I know that it's getting harder and harder to find some of these specialists because the prevailing wages outside of our district are higher. Are we examining that and going to adjust things in the future so that we don't have a shortage in these positions?
Yes, so we actually did do that this year. We have worked really hard to develop with our union an MOU that provides for additional compensation and experience credits for our nursing staff, and we are doing this as a backup in case we cannot find the staff to come on board, but we feel that we have, and I know that Jennifer has really worked hard to find staff, and we've hired a few. So this is a backup plan. It's up to a certain amount, and we hope not to have to use it.
Okay, great.
Jennifer, can you give us an update of where we are with nurses?
Oh, I didn't see you back there, sorry.
Thank you, Rosalind. Right on. You got it. As she said, we hope not to use it. At present time, we had 2 more nursing positions still to fill. Now, Shelley Hobbs, our health services administrator, had done some interviews and was working closely with the HR department. So I haven't heard the latest if they have accepted, but we did offer out to nurses. And I believe that I think we had 2 LPNs as well. We hired 11 nurses since last spring.
That is great.
So my appreciation to the partnership with our business partners, our finance partners, and our HR partners in making a difference in our recruitment.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Awesome. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Thank you, Jen.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Thank you. Item 14.6, approval of the school resource officer's 5-year contract between the City of Tacoma, Tacoma Police Department, and Tacoma Public Schools. Space.
Thank you. The Assistant Superintendent of K-12 Support recommends that the Board of Directors approve submission of the 5-year contract for school resource officers between the City of Tacoma, Tacoma Police Department, and Tacoma Public Schools not to exceed the amount of $2,150,000. Funding source, Tacoma Public Schools.
Move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or comments of the board?
I just thought this had gone way up, and then I realized that was
It's
5 years, so that
Yeah,
was good.
I was gonna say, I was gonna compliment us and TPD on being able to do a 5-year contract and locking
Absolutely.
us in, so we don't have to go through this every year.
The credit truly goes to the police chief, who really wanted to, as my understanding from Director Villahermosa, make sure that this program was stabilized
Right.
and clearly identified. One of the additional costs associated with this program is an additional person. So previously, we had SROs at the 5 comprehensive high schools. This agreement has allowed for the police department to provide a supervising sergeant for the all of the SROs, so that they have a dedicated leader. But that person is also going to be stationed at Oakland High School, so that they can perform some of the relationship building activities that our other SROs do at Oakland, and also hopefully that will allow us to decrease reliance on off-duty police officers when Oakland has need for presence of law enforcement. Additionally, this captures more of the more broad relationship that the district and the police department have been able to cultivate in the last 3 or 4 years, including formalizing the agreements associated with how we will conduct interviews together when there is, for example, a Title IX investigation where Dr. Kabista and her staff have to work collaboratively with law enforcement, or a personnel matter where Assistant Superintendent Nolan and her staff have to work collaboratively with law enforcement. And it also formalizes our reciprocity with use of each other's facilities for training purposes, so that we don't have to do individual agreements when the Tacoma Police Department, for example, wants to use one of our empty buildings for trainings, or for when our school patrol officers are accessing the Tacoma Police Department range.
Great, thank you. Good work on the part of our staff, and thank you, Chief Ramsdale. Any further questions, comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 4-0. Item, excuse me, 14.7, ratification of contract with City of Tacoma and Tacoma Police Department for the 2015-16 school year. Mrs. Pace, could you explain this, please?
Sure. Do you want me to read it first?
Go ahead,
or-
read
okay.
that, and then indicate
I'll-
why
I'll-
we're doing this now.
Okay. The Assistant Superintendent of K-12 Support recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the Superintendent to ratify the attached contract for services to be provided by the City of Tacoma and Tacoma Police Department for the 2015-16 school year.
I move approval.
Okay, go ahead. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded now. Thank you. Go ahead.
So we had a contract that went through 2009, I believe, and it was of both parties were happy with it, And the fiscal cycle for both entities, the Tacoma Police Department and Tacoma School District, City of Tacoma and Tacoma Police Department, were different than ours. And so basically what happened is we didn't get a contract written for 2015-16. And so this is an opportunity to put that in place after not having it in place. And both groups, all groups, continued going forward with the same agreements as if it had never stopped. And so this is a ratification of that contract so that we can go back and make sure it's all right.
So the short explanation is in 2009, the board adopted an interlocal agreement with the Tacoma Police Department, and when that expired every year going forward, there was simply an agreement to extend the contract under the prior terms. After the city had their big budgetary issue where it looked like they were going to have to make massive cuts to the police department, they approached us about how could we better align our fiscal cycle and their fiscal cycle, and there was a back and forth discussion about that and an agreement to transition to using the district cycle for this agreement, given that the SROs are in the schools consistent with our cycle rather than theirs. And and then I think everybody got really excited about doing the 5-year agreement, and this is being done to ensure that the payments for the 2015-2016 school year are made with the board's knowledge and approval, given that the mounted issue, while split between 2 fiscal years for the city, it was within 1 fiscal year for the district.
Just so you know, the city operates on a calendar year, January to end of December, and we go from September to September. So just a budget housekeeping. Okay. Any further comments, questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Hearing no's, motion passes 4-0. 15, other business. 15-1, approval of land purchase agreement with the City of Tacoma. Mr. Murakami, if you would, please.
The Chief Operating Officer recommends the Board of Directors authorize the superintendent or designee to enter into the real estate purchase and sale agreement between the Tacoma School District and the City of Tacoma Department of Public Utilities Water Division for the Flume Line right-of-way property adjacent to the Arlington Elementary site.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there questions or comments of Mr. Murakami? Hearing, whoop.
Oh, go ahead. I thought that was a
I was
question.
going to say, if we're not going to hear any, are we good? I think we all know what it is. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed? No. Motion carries 4-0. Item 15-2, approval of energy services through McKistry. Say that for me, Steve.
Ascension.
Ascension LLC for Fawcett Elementary, Point Defiance Elementary, and Stanley Elementary.
The Chief Operating Officer recommends the Board of Directors approve services by Energy Service Company, ESCO, McKinstry Ascension, LLC, in the amount of $1,099,773, excluding sales tax.
I move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions of Mr. Murakami? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Item 15.3, approval of agreement between Tacoma School District Number 10 and Pierce Transit. Ms. Medina, I think that's yours.
Excuse me. The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors approve the agreement with Pierce Transit for 2,525 Orca passport cards in the amount of $298,604 for the 16-17 school year.
I move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Are there any questions of the of Ms. Medina by the board? Director Hines.
Had a comment and a question. I appreciate that we're expanding the access to buses. I think this is moving towards a more equitable way. I'm curious, do we track ridership? It's a
Yes.
significant amount of money. We make it available. Do the students use it?
Right. So the way the system is set up for us, echo is so bad. Sorry.
This one was like,
What happens is, as the students swipe, Pierce County Transit or Pierce Transit is calculating and taking note of those, and they use that to build our next billing cycle. So the billing cycle that we have here now is based on last year's riderships, and the price would adjust based on the use. And so we don't actually, while we pay for the card as a whole amount, it's anticipated that it would be worth X amount of dollars. Next year, we would right size the usage of those. So if we have a whole bunch of cards that go out that don't get used, we wouldn't end up paying for those. Does that make sense?
In the next budget, so we give a
Next
student a
year.
card, but if they don't use it, we're not charged for the use?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then do we check in with the students? I would be curious to know, in addition to getting to and from school, how else they use it? Because we could see the exponential benefit to the community. Are they going to jobs? Are they going to volunteer?
So we've asked for data, and go ahead. We're exploring that with Pierce Transit on what our options are for the data and the types of uses, days and times. I'm not sure that they're going to be able to provide us that information,
Okay, well.
so we're exploring.
One thing I'd like to thank you. Howard, I think all of us saw, like yesterday, that our neighboring school district had a major trauma in the loss of, I believe, 24 buses, or between 24 and 26, a major portion of their fleet. And I'd like to know, I understand that we've offered some assistance to them, and I think it would be nice if you could tell us what that was.
Yeah, we reached out to OSPI and our contractor Durham. We have 3 buses for this school district, part of our special education fleet, that we feel that we can loan Puyallup. And we've also communicated with Durham. They have 10 buses within their fleet that come from the buses that they're removing from their fleet, from our fleet, that they're going to be able to provide as well. And so we've been in communication via OSPI with the Puyallup School District to offer some assistance. We also reached out to their CFO today and just indicated that we have some vans potentially that they might be able to use in the meantime.
Good.
Washington Schools Risk Management Pool, as are they. And I spoke with the risk pool's executive director, who had staff on site yesterday as the firemen were still there, and they anticipate that they're going to be able to be in a position to reimburse the district very quickly. The challenge is, of course, getting the new buses on site. So if you would like to know what would happen if the Tacoma was faced in a similar situation, I'm able to provide that answer.
Yeah, I just appreciate the fact that we jumped in and reached out very, very quickly to help make sure that their kids get to school on time this fall, and thank you to everybody's staff that was involved in doing that. Question.
A question back about the Orca cards.
Mhm.
I had a student intern with me through the Summer Jobs 253 program this summer who happened to also be a SOTA student, so she had an Orca card. Are Summer Jobs 253 participants among the pool of students who have access to Orca cards?
Not currently, not that I'm aware of.
There are situations where there's case by case where we work at there. And just to add to your comment, Director Hines, the intent of the expansion, and for those that are at home watching, is I want to give some kudos to the CFO, Ms. Medina, and Sue Race. When we sat down, it was built off of one of your requests, and how do we expand opportunities for kids, not only for choice, but to look at which students traditionally are not served. And so the expansion of to Lincoln and Foss was based off of free and reduced lunch price rates of the school. Who would be the target populations that we could pilot and to see about rider usage? And the idea there is if students do use this, and what's exciting is we want them to use them for extracurricular activities, to get extra support with some of our community partners, for their jobs, Summer Jobs 253, those kind of opportunities that we can't traditionally offer in there. And can we build a formula that we could provide advanced training, or advanced budgeting, and potentially look at what could be offered for other students across the district. And so we're encouraging students to use this if they need to get to the Boys and Girls Club, if they need to get to Peace Community Center, that maybe their community partner that's helping them achieve their academic successes in another part of town, as well as maybe they want to offer choice and opportunity. And so maybe there is a student that wants to really access, and we have done this with Foss IB, but wants to go to Foss for something else. Maybe it's the Korean language program, or they want to go to Lincoln, then we're going to help provide support for them.
Okay, any further questions or comments?
Just to follow on, so I think back, it was a couple of years ago, we had the brave student who came in, part of the McKinney-Vento report, and shared her story about how she and her siblings had essentially been abandoned, and that whenever she was able to scrape together enough money to catch the bus to go to school, she would go to school. So trying to remove those sorts of barriers, I think, is incredibly important. So thank you, Rosalind, for your work on this.
Yep.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, are we ready to vote? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Report to the board, item 16, 16-1, construction update, Mr. Murakami.
Thank you, Board President Vial. Members of the board, Superintendent Santorno, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Garcia. I'd like to invite Rob Swatsky, our Director of Planning and Construction, up. Rob and I are really excited. This is a pretty amazing time in Tacoma Public Schools. The Planning and Construction Department is at its busiest it's ever been in the history of the district. And the projects that are starting to open this year are the first projects that were crafted in the visioning document that the board approved back in 2014. Washington was the first school to open at the 2013 bond, but it was in design when we went through the bond process. And it was refinanced as part of the $500 million bond package that we got approved in 2013. And so the new thinking, the vision, the coming together of senior leadership, teachers, students, principals, our staff, to craft the visioning document that was presented to you originally in 2014. These are the first projects that you're starting to see with this holistic vision that is student-centered, and it looks at the activities and methodologies, the kind of activities we want our students to learn by, and the activities and thoughts of how we want our teachers to teach by. That's in the heart of these schools that we're going to start unveiling. And so Rob and I are super excited. I'm going to turn it over to Rob to lead us through a photographic presentation of some of the more recent efforts on our major capital projects and our small capital work that we did this summer. So Rob.
So we have a lot of ground to cover in a very short period of time, so I'm going to try to do a flyby and give you an opportunity, because there's a lot going on.
You got your drone with you?
Yeah, exactly. So I'll give you an opportunity to ask some questions at the end. As I got thinking about how to depict what we've been doing, the huge amount that we've been doing, a theme kind of arose in my mind, and that is the theme of transformation. And so I put the definition up here, a thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance, and I thought that was apropos given the huge changes that have happened and the transformations that we've seen in so many ways across the district, just in our buildings. But I also wanted to say that we have a strong belief that the designs that we're introducing are going to be transformational to the way kids learn. We believe it's going to be transformational in the tools that it provides for teachers to do business in a conservative way, a traditional way, or a more contemporary way, or more progressive way, and everything in between. So that's the excitement. We really believe it's going to have an impact that's going to change students' lives and change the way that they learn. So
it's also transformational in the way that the vision of the new documents puts the new school projects as an asset to the community. And so we're looking at how our partnerships, how our strategic goals can help shape and define the buildings we're building. We're also, as you know, through the work of our inclusion plan, we're starting to look at how these projects, we've said before, I think I heard Dr. Garcia say it first, that these schools are our opportunity not just to build better schools for Tacoma, but to build a better Tacoma. And so with these projects in looking at apprenticeship utilization and MWBE support, we still have a long way to go, but we're making strides in that a lot of districts aren't taking on yet. So transformational community change is part of this as well.
These spaces that you're going to see today, even now, though everything's not complete, they're beautiful. And I feel like give kids a sense of belonging and of worth. And in their ticker tape, maybe saying things like, you built this for me, you built this for us. Excitement for being at school makes a big difference. When you can get kids excited and engaged in the learning process, they learn better. Creating that sense of awe and wonder. I wrote down the googliness in all of us, I think is important, and looking at the flexibility and agility of the spaces that have been created, the furniture, the technology, again, just creating different experiences. So I wanted to show you some pictures. You may recognize this picture. This is McCarver in 2015. And this is McCarver during construction. And now what you see is McCarver restored, transformed, and really restored more closely back to how it was when it was first built. If you haven't had a chance to tour it yet, we would love to tour you again. It's a phenomenal space. The occupancy is happening now. Teachers were back today. Furniture's in, AV is in. We are going to likely have our certificate of occupancy before the start of school, which doesn't happen very often. We often get a temporary certificate, and so that's pretty impressive. So we're very grateful for the team who's worked on this project. More transformation at McCarver. Going back one slide here, you'll see this was the basement partway through the construction, and now this is the shiny new, what we call the messy hall, which is a multi-use space, cafeteria, space for kids to have messy Da Vinci-like projects. And even if you see in behind the stairwell, you see a space where it's blackboard and it's going to be chalk and a place for kids to hang out and have that informal learning experience. You're going to see spaces in McCarver now that are completely reconfigurable. Tables you can see here have whiteboard tops and a touch screen that's mobile throughout the building. In all of the classrooms, soft seating, areas for reading intervention and math intervention, vibrant colors, ample daylighting, and the list goes on. But this is an example of one of the spaces you would see there.
It's neat to see, I don't know if you see the little green light under the clock, but it says if this green light is on, open the windows, and the building needs to breathe. And so it tells the occupants how to occupy the building so that it's naturally ventilated at the right times.
Just a little insider trader. If you're out one of the first days of schools, I'd really encourage you to go see McCarver. It's absolutely gorgeous, and it's you feel a whole different sense of life that is going to take place there. And once the kids enter the building, it's going to be completely magical. So go check that one out.
I can't possibly tell you everything cool about that building, but it's exciting to see it come together on time and on budget.
That's magical too.
That's magical too.
Yeah, the on time, on budget is critical.
Yeah. So moving on.
Mr. Swatsky, I believe Director Cobb had a question.
Yes.
Is there space for parents in this new design?
Great question. So we have an area along, oh goodness, I always forget the street. We have a place for community partners that we have shelled out, and what I mean by that, there's lighting and there's electrical, the walls are painted, but we haven't designated the space yet. So there is an opportunity to have partners in that space. We also have multiple different offices with our counselor and our school psychologist and OT/PT. So there are a lot of different areas. And one of the things aspirationally that we'd like to do is that McCarver Square is built such that down the road to operationalize that, to have it become perhaps a public library, or using the messy hall to have community groups come in and use. There are opportunities to do that. That hasn't been programmed at this point, but it certainly has the capacity to do that.
Recent conversations, Director Cobb, have been around creating, though, a parent lounge, a place where parents can interact and access technology, or just the kind of kibitzing that happens before and after school. And so we're looking at how that could be dovetailed into our current projects in design. As we continue this evolution, it's an iterary process, and we're constantly looking at how we can evolve that. And there are some nooks and niches and places to hang, but as we're looking at 21st century schools with security needs, we're trying to be more intentional with that. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out at McCarver, because there are opportunities, but it also has to play in with where are people allowed, what's the expectations, and what do they feel comfortable in a place that they can occupy. And so we do have some places on the public side of the vestibule as you come in, soft seating areas. We have an office right in the front that could be a community liaison office, and so places that you can feel like you can be. So
It sounds like that's something the schools will direct. I mean, that's up to the McCarver staff, principal, to work
Yes.
together, decide where they, you know, and with the parents, to
Right.
decide where they want to.
But you will see it at the new Wainwright. When you come into the new Wainwright,
Yeah.
there is a very welcoming front porch that you look like you can access and be comfortable just being there as part of the
When
school.
you come into the Mary Lyon, it's in design, but you'll come in and there's actually a community room designed into Mary Lyon.
Yeah.
And, you know, the safety piece, the vestibules in each of the buildings so that we have control of who enters the building is an important piece as well.
So one of the other things is McCarver needs to also be seen as the McCarver campus, because we've done some things with the McCarver primary to bring some community partners inside there, and there's wonderful resources there too. And so the school administration team and the school leadership team is really starting to look at that as a campus approach versus everything going into the school itself.
So more transformation. We shared this with you in March at Wilson Phase 2, and Wilson has transformed as well. We have targeted occupancy. We will be ready for the start of school. And when I say ready, it means it will be occupiable, and there will still be some evening and weekend work going on to finish up some minor things. And then the music building will continue work on. And then the athletic fields will also have work continued on. And both of those projects, which are part of this, will be done in the spring. But this is what Wilson looks like now. So there'll be some landscaping going on after school gets started, but we will be occupied by the start of school. The gym building, we ran into some damage on the floor, so we're dealing with that and working with Mr. Bissett so that we can work around how we're going to manage PE and that sort of thing. But we intend to have that gym ready by the beginning of November, so we have basketball season. And then the pool building will be ready actually just a little bit prior to that in early October. So we're moving along as quickly as we can on this one, but we will have the academic building ready for the start of school.
Yeah, people don't realize that school is 57 years old, and we've encountered some things. I know when we got into the gym and into the swimming pool and a lot of corrosion and things like that. So that's why it's a little bit late getting done.
This is a picture of the new state-of-the-art culinary lab. I thought I should show a picture of that. I could have shown a lot of pictures. This is really impressive when you have a chance to walk in. Again, kids getting hands-on learning experiences. Very exciting to see that kind of setup at Wilson.
I would quickly add for Wilson, I walked there, the new building, the academic wing, this afternoon, and the program that went into the academic wing were kind of the leftover parts and pieces that got left out of the 2005 edition, and so it's a building made up of many pieces for special education and ROTC and video production and culinary and then the math team. And when you walk through there, there's so much unity now in the collaboration and the spaces that connect all of those different kinds of groups. It's phenomenal. I can't wait for you guys to see it. It's a state-of-the-art educational facility that just brings those groups together and then allows a lot of interaction with others through art, through display and performance even. I mean, there's just so much to offer in this new building.
It's a
phenomenal.
beautiful space. I was over there the other day with Mr. Bissett, and it's
Yeah.
a beautiful space.
So I wanted to talk briefly about Whittier. And because Whittier has transformed, we went from, I wrote down from basement to beauty. Because we have now taken what in the back here needed power washing and painting and new windows and put in new HVAC and new electrical, updated plumbing. So a lot has been done to improve this space. So this is from the outside looking in, and then the inside, where we have created our 6th grade area to start the year. And really these areas mimic what teachers are going to be seeing at Wainwright. So again, we have flexible furnishings and audiovisual. We have almost tripled the lighting in there so that we have a brighter space. I said a moment ago we swapped out the windows so that we had more natural light coming in. We now have a very workable space that should be exciting for kids to start the year.
I think it was a good balance of permanent investment in making Whittier's lower floor better, but also in bringing in pieces that will move with the staff to Wainwright, and so that we weren't expending for all new pieces, that we're being mindful and thoughtful of what we're investing, what's going to stay at Whittier to make Whittier better so they gain from this, but also to get the Wainwright staff up to speed with the new amenities that they're going to see in the new building and be able to take that with them.
And then moving on to Wainwright, which you saw this picture in March, and it has been transformed right now looking like this. We are slated to be substantially complete in October, and testing and balancing the system to be able to have kids in there no later than January 1st. So we're still on track with that timeline. And this is just a look at the back of the property as well. Looking inside, you can see glazing going in, glass in a teacher collaboration area where teachers will have an opportunity to work together and still be able to see outside into some of the shared learning areas where kids will be, and also showing you a look into one of the science areas.
What I was struck by when I over there was the amazing natural light that they've been able to put into that building. You feel like it's they don't have to have lights on, and I think that was one of, well, some, but overall just that use of glass walls and skylights and a lot of natural light, is very warm feeling in that building. Ooh, issue. Okay.
So moving on to Stewart.
Woohoo.
This building is ahead of schedule. It will be substantially complete here in December. So we're excited about that one being finished early. It is transformed on the inside, and it's maintained the beauty on the outside. So going from a rendering to an actual picture, this brings Stewart back to the original. When they scraped through the paint on the windows that we replaced, they found that the original color was, and I don't know the type of green, but it's a kind of a muted green color. It's very beautiful. It pops out of the windows. But these windows, of course, help with the energy consumption in the building, and so will be there for many, many years, but replicating what was there. So on the facade of the building, you're still seeing the beauty. Much of the brickwork has been completed, and as you start to go into the building, and this is actually a rendering. It's hard to believe it's a rendering, but this is what it's supposed to look like, and this is actually what it looks like right now. So it is taking shape wonderfully. And this space is one of the, I think this is the north light well, north atrium, and in this space you're going to have activities like cooking and drama and messy kinds of activities, fabrication. I know in the south light well there's going to be broadcasting. So this is this idea again of project-based learning, messy learning, roll up your sleeves, and engaging kind of learning experience that kids can really connect with.
So, if you all remember, you've all been through Stewart. When you went through, you looked out the windows into those interior courtyards where you looked down on a dirty roof, and you didn't really understand where you were in the building because you were in a tunnel that just circled around on each floor. There's now so much connectivity between the building, light coming through. So this is actually one of those light wells that we created, a new roof, and then those bright apertures are skylights washing the walls down. And so now you understand there's connectivity, transparency. You can see the excitement that's going on in these STEM labs, and then glass boxes for small collaboration areas coming in. The transformation here, I cannot wait for us to go through this building when it's done. Phenomenal.
Were there not original light shafts in that building?
There were originally light shafts in the lower roof for the lower room, but we've taken it all the way to the third floor and opened everything up.
Good, that's great.
SAMI, the Environmental Learning Center. So I cannot remember if I showed you this little flyby, but I thought I would show it quickly. This is a really neat way of, did it stop on us? Oh, it's still going. Oh, it stopped again. If not, we can move along. But SAMI's coming along. You know, we have broken ground out there. This is a rendering again of what it's going to look like coming out of the trees, the classroom, the outdoor classroom, and into the workshops to analyze data and to fabricate. Again, it's that idea of research that happens and the fabrication and the testing and the analyzing of data. So taking kids through that whole scientific process and giving them that opportunity to have an amenity like this. So I'm sorry the video's not working well. I'll move on to the next one. This is just a picture of what I saw out there yesterday. So when I drove out, many of the trees have come down in that area. A lot of the trees that have come down are going to be used by the students at SAMI to work on projects. So that's neat that wood's being recovered and used. So not much to show yet. They have cleared some trees. They're doing some excavation. They're working on some of the utilities. So it's moving along. So we're excited about that project.
And we'll be working with you for a formal groundbreaking ceremony. Right now, they've worked to establish the construction limits and start the clearing, and then we'll have in partnership with Metro Parks, we're working to establish a formal ceremony for you all to be out there.
Arlington, also, we are moving quickly on this project. I'm happy to say we're actually slightly ahead of schedule, which is a nice thing to report. Currently, we've got foundation walls in part of the school that have gone up. The lower field we actually worked on early, have completed that. Topsoil's coming in this week, and we're going to be hydroseeding that by October 1st. So it has a year to come in and grow, a little bit over a year, or approximately a year, so before the start of school. So Arlington is well on its way, so we're excited about that project. And then in design right now, Mary Lion, the new Mary Lion. Mary Lion is pops of color on the outside. We are looking at doing solar panels on the south-facing roof. We're talking about how that would be. We're really trying to get closer to those buildings eventually that could be net zero and in terms of their energy consumption. And so we're having many conversations about what that could look like. When you will walk into Mary Lion, you will walk into the heart of the school, the library. Steve was talking about connectivity vertically, so you can be connected on all the different floors. So that's going to be exciting. The community room that will be there will be exciting. So this project overall is coming together very nicely. Just some renderings to show what it will look like inside. You can see that we have classrooms again with flexibility, with transparency, and with connection to shared learning and to breakout spaces. And so some of the themes you're continuing to see are around those that we've mentioned. Browns Point, similarly, is moving right along. We were approved to do this project as a GCCM job, and Skanska was approved by you to be our contractor for that job, and so that one is moving along. Interior spaces, some exciting renderings to see what it will look like in that courtyard as you look down at that connection to outdoor learning opportunities from the second floor, and having a rooftop garden for kids to be able to plant and understand that connection to nature. So these are exciting spaces as well. This is a rendering of what it will look like if you were inside the classrooms looking out onto those spaces from the first floor. And then future projects. As you know, you approved the selection of McGranahan Architects for Bernie and Grant, and we've had a couple of meetings now, and we'll be kicking off those projects next week for pre-design work, so we're excited about where that will go. And Steve and I have talked about how the project work that we do here in Tacoma should be iterative, and so we are taking all the ideas in design that we know and love and know have worked, and we're going to start building on those, so those ideas that we don't want to lose continue to be a part of the projects, and then continue to push on how we can be more innovative as we design these buildings. Next year, we'll be going out for architectural selection on Bose and Downing, and then Hunt. So small cap projects.
Yeah, so just real quick, we undertook about $4 million worth of small capital projects this summer. So maybe some of the highlights we can show. Hoyt is finally accessible, and so there's an ADA accessible ramp now down to the facility that's just completed this last week. Foss Field Lighting for equity, they now have the ability to do the same football practices as the other sites, and so that was completed.
As well as girls soccer.
As well as girls soccer, thank you very much. Playground construction projects, several happening over the summer, 3 or 4 sites, and we're assisting with the ECAP department to get their 2 projects executed. The Willie Stewart Academy, we finally got our branding complete and got exterior signage up. If you haven't seen it at night with the uplight, it's beautiful. Cool. We put two new turf field replacements down. Mount Tahoma and Lincoln High School are complete. And then this is the community-based transition program at the PDC. This is a special program. This was the existing science lab that was below, on the lower floor, below our classrooms of the future, if you have seen those. So just below that were 2 science rooms that had been most recently used as music repair stations. But when that program was moved, these 2 rooms sat unused. And so we're developing this one into the community-based transition program. And so there you see it now. 2 full kitchen suites, a simulated living room, bedroom, and bathroom, real working bathroom environment. And so this is where our CBT students are going to learn real life skills and employment skills to be able to take on their next step in their lives. And so the beautiful transformation with an MWBE firm that's new to us, but that has done great work. So now we're going to go into, we've started giving you overviews on our major capital projects, but we wanted to give you a snapshot of where we are with finances. And so I'll start with this, and Rob, you fill in. Sure. When we started with our $500 million bond from our 2013 initiative, we had about $5.5 million in reserves in dollars saved from past projects. We received premiums on our bonds, and then we also did receive some state match dollars that were extinguished when our eligibility was finalized with the projects at Washington, McCarver, Stewart, and Wilson. And so from our $500 million, leveraging partnerships with OSPI, bond premiums, and then our past savings, we had a total working capital of $544 million, almost $545 million.
So I should add the caveat that on the next slide, I noted that bond expenditures are about $2 million or so. So what we had, it's a wash basically with the premium on the bond and then the bond expenditures.
So here's our expenditures and encumbrances to date on all of our projects. On the left-hand side, you see where we are to date. On the right-hand side, you see the budget that you had approved. And so currently we are on budget on all of our projects, as you see to date, and they're tracking well. And then as you get into the future projects with Browns Point, Bernie, Grant, we're still in the design phase. And so those will be building out. Anything to add?
So I was going to add, this is current to date, so expended and encumbered and in the approved budgets. But I also asked Ann Cummings to just take a look at our projections for the future on the 4 that are currently in construction. And what I can tell you is that we are within 1% of our budget based on our and those are conservative forecasting. So, you know, we know there on Wilson as an example, you know, to take care of our gym floor issue. You know, we've actually budgeted for that, but it's possible that could become an insurance claim. And so, you know, looking at all of these projects and knowing what we're dealing with market conditions and so on, to be within 1% of the budgets, we're feeling like the team has done a great job in looking for value engineering opportunities and not sacrificing quality and aesthetic.
I appreciate this summary that I asked Steve to do this tally for us, and I appreciate you putting that together. And I know Director Hines had asked for projects, and I thought maybe a running tabulation like this would help us as we go through. Would it be possible for us to get these like quarterly?
Of course.
Where we are?
We'll do better than that, likely. I mean,
okay,
yeah,
I just
we have the
okay, at a minimum quarterly.
Yes.
You know, so that we know, you know, that we're going to make that 544 mil
exactly
by the skin of our teeth, probably, but we'll get there. You know,
we will.
Yeah,
and we're proud of the numbers. We, you know, this is
well, you are.
This is
I mean,
great.
I'm very impressed with.
We're happy to report it.
How well we've been able to stay on or under budget, and the good work that we're doing. And this also helps the public understand what we're doing too and how well we're doing in terms of the expenditure of those funds.
Yes.
So thank you.
The last slide, part of the $500 million bond initiative was $45 million in small capital projects. And so this is to date what we have expended or encumbered. We have transferred $7 million of the 45 for project increases like Wainwright when we went to an intermediate model, or Wilson High School when we expanded scope. And so that's where those dollars came from in addition to the previous savings that we had. And so we have encumbered about $33 million of our $45 million budgeted. And so we still have small capital projects promised to be completed, which we are working on currently, and then some potential for contingency on our other major capital projects.
And the promised are included in that $26 million figure, so.
Correct. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, okay, good. Great.
Any questions?
Debbie?
I have one. It's about Stadium Bowl. Did it incur much damage with the flood last year? I know it's opened and going, so what does it look like?
Let me start. The most significant piece was the cleanup effort to get the silts, to pick up all the particulate out of the synthetic turf field and to replace it. And then we did have a structural issue with one of the main concrete stairs going down to the bowl, in that it got undermined. Some of the supporting earth got washed out. So we've gone in and put in piles and then recast all of the concrete below it and then re-landscaped it. So we are still working with Washington State Risk Management Pool, hoping to recover, being reimbursed for some of those dollars. But it's ready to go.
Yeah, the city's put a lot of work into.
The city has.
Yeah, the roads.
They've done a
which is
tremendous
great,
amount.
yeah.
As you guys know,
Wonderful.
that whole drainage
Yeah.
basin goes to our site, and so they've done a great job in adding catch basins above stream.
Yeah, they're huge too, so
They
that's
are.
really good.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments?
That's it.
Great, thank you guys. We really appreciate your good, your good work in this kind of a report. And we know that we're moving on and forward, and it's gonna be fun to see all these new schools opening. Can't wait, especially gonna be fun to see the two historic remodels. The inside of McCarver with the Art Deco stuff restored is absolutely beautiful, because that stuff was boarded up and covered up for many, many years, and now we get to enjoy it again.
If I
Thank
may,
you.
I had one more comment I wanted to make. We've taken on an amazing amount of work, and I have to shout out to the team we've got.
Absolutely.
Amazing people, not just planning construction, but our maintenance and operations folks, the feeling of team, people stepping up and doing more than they need to and going above and beyond the call of duty is day in, day out. So I just want to say thank you to the team that we have. They've been amazing.
One picture we didn't add in the slideshow, we would be remiss if you haven't seen the fourth floor HR remodel. You should take a look through Dr. Nolan's vision of what she wanted to accomplish in bringing her team together. We brought the whole entire team together. We brought other members off of other floors back to HR, and we also took HR's main fourth floor conference room that we've all met in several times, was the main big conference room for this building. We now have 3. And so it's that opportunity to create a place for professionals to come, for the parents to come, for the prospective employees. This is a lot of the times the first touch that we get with a lot of people coming to the district, and now the environment reflects the professionalism and the excitement that's happening in this district. And so they just moved in this week. We still have graphics and other things to do and punch list items to complete, but it's phenomenal, the transformation that's happened for them.
Great, thank you. Okay, item 17, board comments, reports. Director Hines, start with
Nothing
you.
this evening.
Director Cobb.
I'm excited about the school year to start, and in particular, I'm excited about elementary school sports. So I don't know when we'll get a report on how participation on that, but I'm really excited. So as soon as we could, it'd be great to know how many parents and kids take advantage of that opportunity.
Probably about November, and then we'll know for fall sports.
Yeah.
Registration is still open for those
Yeah,
with the
it
flexible
is.
registration, and we have some maybe some potential exciting news coming out, but I'll save that for a different date.
Ooh.
So I have a question, I guess it's my turn, right? about our assignments for next year. And I have Mount Tahoma, which I had year before last, and I think Catherine has Stadium, which she had the year before last, and I wonder if those could be flipped. Because I really like to have Stadium this year.
I'll discuss it with Director.
And I just want to remind you that at our last retreat, I said that I have grandchildren graduating from, twins graduating from Stadium this year, so it would mean a lot for me to have that school this year.
I'll be talking to her. I'll ask her about that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, only report I have is on Monday, I attended the, I guess, graduation for the kids that were in the Tide Flat certification program, and that was fun. There were 20, of the original 24, 22 completed, and they got some major certifications, everything HAZWOPER, flagging, initial firefighter, every one of them said they would do it again. And there were some, you know, it was fun, and it was great to see Mayor Strickland and I handed out the diplomas, and John Page, and it was, I think and Lou Cooper was there from the port. And I think that next year, I think we should include one of the port commissioners when we do this, and expand, and hopefully we can get more kids involved in that program. They really loved going to firefighter training. They, you know, got some real hands-on stuff, and I want to thank Port of Tacoma for being a part of this, and City of Tacoma. The more we can get our kids engaged in our businesses in Tacoma, the more likely they may come back and want to work for our employers in the port and for those in the city. And also the 253 program, I understand this year greatly expanded, and I know that we will be having a celebration for that. So thank you, Mayor Strickland. Thank you, Port Commission, for again being partners with us. I was struck as we went through the agenda tonight that it almost seemed like we set it up to talk about partnerships. As we went through the police department, the housing authority, TAF, that we truly are a school district that engages and works with our community. Okay, announcements of further board meetings. Thursday, September 1st, 2016, 5:30, special meeting and board retreat. Thursday, September 8th, 2016, at 6 o'clock, regular meeting. Thursday, September 15th, 2016, 6 p.m. study session. Thursday, September 22nd, 2016, regular meeting. The chair would entertain a motion, unless there's a further comments by the superintendent or the deputy superintendent.
No,
Chair would entertain, pardon me, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.